What's going on, everybody? This is 6 tips for new Yu-Gi-Oh players in Yu-Gi-Oh! Master Duel. Now, I say new Yu-Gi-Oh players because this is for you if you're brand new to the game or a returning player after a long hiatus, perhaps maybe the Synchro or Xyz era. Maybe you remember pulling cards out of a sandwich bag as a kid and you want to recreate the experience on the computer, then you got on the computer or Switch or PlayStation and saw your opponent in standard bronze throw his entire deck at you on turn 1 and now you're lost or scared or confused. Worry not, because here is 6 tips on gameplay that should help you get on your feet with Yu-Gi-Oh! Master Duel. Tip number 1. Understand terminology. What I don't think the tutorial covers well, granted I did play the experienced player tutorial, so maybe there's a tutorial that I might be missing, but what I don't think it covers is terminology like destroy, negate, or send. These are very important terms. A funny post I saw on Reddit was somebody trying to activate Mystical Space Typhoon against a Raigeki. Now, an experienced player would know that the Mystical Space Typhoon destroys and doesn't negate the Raigeki, thus the Raigeki would go off. Now, this is important because that player just wasted a Mystical Space Typhoon. So in this game, the automated system will do all the interactions for you, but it still matters that you understand it. For example, 2 frequently used cards, Ash Blossom and Joyous Spring, and Effect Veiler, both get sent to the graveyard from your hand to trigger their effects. But Effect Veiler's wording says you can send this card from your hand to the graveyard, whereas Ash Blossom says discard this card. You can't use Veiler if a Macrocosmos or Dimensional Fissure is on the board because the text says hand to graveyard, but you could still use Ash because it just requires you to discard. Now, tip number 2, understand chain links. If you've seen the animation of the chains in game, you'll notice that it says 1, 2, maybe 3, etc. This is referred to as a chain link. The ruling is that the cards resolve in the order from last to first. So the third card in the chain link will resolve, then the second, and so on. Now, if a card within the chain link isn't affected by the previous effects, it'll still resolve. It may matter that some cards resolve first in the chain or last. Just be wary of when you're activating cards so you don't make any mistakes or waste any of your resources when you don't need to. Now, tip number 3, understand card types like Quick Play Spell, Counter Trap, Continuous Spell, and so on. You may be confused by watching a player use a Quick Play Spell on their opponent's turn. This could be done because a spell is already set, or watching someone destroy Fire Formation Tenki without seeing its effect resolve, despite it not being negated. Now, without going into too much detail about it, because there's just a lot to it, just take from this that you should find a resource that explains these card types and experience them yourself to get a better understanding of how they work. Tip number 4 would be to rush staples. Staples is a term we use to refer to commonly used cards that are put in most decks. Even a subpar deck with a good set of these cards might have a chance at stopping some of the best decks in the game if you play them right. Every other brand new player tutorial seems to cover where to spend gems, how to save gems, where to put your money, and so on. I just want you to enjoy the cards that look cool to you and try to make the best deck out of them before really spending a lot of money on the more commonly used archetypes. This could be done by first acquiring staples like Lightning Storms, Ash Blossoms, Effect Veiler, etc. There's actually an image I found on Reddit a few days ago that lists every staple that you should be running. Look for something like that and try to grab those cards first. From there, you can figure out what archetypes look cool to you and how to best adapt them to the meta. Now, tip number 5, figure out your end board with deck building. Now, it doesn't have to be top tier, but you should know what a winning board with your deck is supposed to look like. So to illustrate this, I made a King Dragoon Turbo deck with just the starting cards. Now, does it win a lot of games? Of course not, but it beats other starter decks because it knows what the end of its game is supposed to look like. That being said, it gets the cards needed to make King Dragoon, then putting King Dragoon on the board as fast as possible to protect itself and other dragons from card effects. Now, with that in mind, every card I add to the deck going forward is going to be to get me closer to that outcome. My last and most important tip is don't get overwhelmed, okay? The text on the cards may seem daunting and the plays coming from your opponent may look complicated, but don't worry. We've all been there and thousands of players picking up the game are probably right where you are. Enough time with the game and you'll start picking up how to read the text faster or how to spot patterns within archetypes. I've always said the complexity of the game is what's kept people playing it for all these years, and once you get over that hump, you'll start enjoying the process as much as I do. Now check it out, I still read cards, I still drop my combos, I don't know how to get around Bird Up, and I also watch FDK plays and throw up from the anxiety of not knowing what the hell is going on. But figuring out how to deal with it better is what's the enjoyable part for me. And this has been 6 tips for brand new players to Yu-Gi-Oh! Master Duel and the Yu-Gi-Oh! Trading card game as a whole. Subscribe if you got something out of this, and check me out on twitch.tv/labygo, and have a great rest of your day. Take care.